So I think, Elaine, I think you spoke about, you do your service plans, yeah? And is that involving all of the team, or is it just managers?
It was all the management team and then elements of it involved the team.
So for example, looking at the arrears process, it involved the team so that they could say, well, this works, that doesn't. So it was a mixture of both, to be honest.
Yeah. And does anyone write an income action plan every year? Who was it who said that they had a plan? Someone said that they had it was you, from where? Yeah, from when you had that director before.
Yeah.
We're going to look at a UC migration plan. If I'm honest,
we can share one. We've got one, and you can take it to pieces, and we'll just delete it. Yeah. Talk us through that, because you had a director or a manager that came in and.
Yeah, he was a director, so he came from the banking.
Yeah.
And he actually did drum into us. No matter what you're doing, always have an action plan.
Yep.
Always have it.
Yep.
Even if it's only something that you think is very small.
Yes.
With very clear objectives of what you're trying to achieve. Because if you haven't got that down, you can end up on a completely different path. And then you get to the end and you think, I've not actually done what I needed to do in the first place.
I couldn't agree more. I always remember about 10 years ago. Do you remember when things like bedroom tax came in and benefit cap and the start of universal credit? It was about 2013. The team that I was managing at the time, we saw arrears increase because of bedroom tax and things like that. And I was under real pressure from the exec team to get arrears down because we'd restructured. So there was this big focus on making sure that the new structure worked. And after about 6 months, my manager, one of the directors, said, Mark, what's the plan? And I didn't have one. Ever since then, I've had an action plan. So for the next, I think, 7, 8, 9 years I was at that organisation, every January or February, I wrote a plan. And so when the arrears increased, if my manager said, Mark, what's the plan? I could just simply forward that to them. And my manager would probably go away, but it gave them that confidence that there was a plan. We might not cover everything off and we might not even reduce arrears, but it just gave that person that comfort that there was some kind of plan. And ever since then, I've done exactly the same thing, a plan for UC or a plan for day-to-day stuff, or even a culture plan. So I've put together a culture plan before because I needed the teams that I were managing to embrace the organisation's culture. And the only way of doing that was to have a plan that people could commit to. And about 9 or 10 years ago, every January or February, I got everyone into a room, similar to today, and worked out what great looked like when it came to income collection. So this wasn't done with just managers, it was done with frontline officers, because invariably officers have got the best ideas. And it was about setting out a vision for the year ahead, because I wanted the staff to get excited about being part of the team. So we looked at 4 different elements of what great looked like when it came to income collection. What did the service need to look like? What did the culture need to feel like? What did we need from the people that were in the team? But also, what did performance need to look like?
I think as well, when you've got something like that, earlier we spoke about limiting emails, giving feedback and having those 15-minute stand-ups. When you've developed something like that, those 15-minute, thank God it's Monday sessions, it's not all about just positive for the sake of positive. It's all the things that we've progressed on. So these are all your ideas that we've now implemented. It's a great way to keep people up to date. It's a great way to say you said we did. It's also a great way to minimise the amount of emails that you have to send updating people as well. So when you start to combine the different ideas, there's lots of opportunities for implementing things like this.
And every year I ask the staff what stopped them from being great. You know, what stopped them from smashing targets and being confident in their abilities to do the job. The caveat of that is that I had to be open to hearing issues, because people don't tell you all the good stuff. Sometimes they're going to give you some of the not so good stuff. but I found that those issues were actually opportunities to be fixed and to be sorted out. And what I quite liked is that it got the whole team involved, so people had a sense of ownership and responsibility for the year ahead. And for me, it was about getting them excited to be the best team possible. So I think for yourself, ask yourself for 2024, what do you want to achieve? What does 2024 look like for you? And if you haven't done an action plan, you could be doing that in the next couple of weeks. Separate to that, does anyone write down all of their ideas and thoughts about how to transform the service? Yeah, no? You do? You email yourself. Just talk me through what you do then. So if an idea comes into your head.
Yeah, I'll put it in my calendar, obviously, and then I'll work out whether it's possible to implement on part of it, and then we'll try it.
Yep.
Move on.
But I bet the reason that you email yourself is just to provide that clarity and focus. Because if it was just in your head, it would probably fade away.
Yeah, I mean, your attention is divided in all sorts of directions every single day. So if it pops into your head, it might take time, otherwise you'll soon forget it.
Yeah.
We call them shower thoughts.
Effectively,
what it is when you're concentrating on something outside of work, subconsciously you're still thinking about work and great ideas come into your head. So it's funny, sometimes I'll be driving, my partner will be at the side of me, I'll be like, write this down for me quick, and then I'll make her write things in my notes and then send it me later. But yeah, that's just us, the kind of crazy things we get up to.
Certainly over those planning to be great sessions that I used to do every January or February, I also involved other teams. I didn't just focus on the income team. I also thought about those teams that could play a part in collecting rent. So invariably, someone like the head of the contact centre would come along and would play their part, or head of lettings, because I knew the lettings team needed to play their part. It's always good to get other people involved. And I think what I found was the outcomes were staff were much more engaged in the process. So that led to higher productivity. There was better consistency across the staff. We seemed to find every year we got better and better results, but also staff were happier because they felt engaged in the process. And I think a lot of organisations spend thousands and thousands on consultancy and consultants, but actually your team can give you free business advice because they know the business better than anyone. So I think when you're putting together a plan, I think if you keep doing the same things, you keep getting the same results. But what happens if you had a blank canvas and you just started again? How would you lead the team differently in 2024? And I would always say is, are you interested in doing a plan, or are you committed? Because if you're interested, you might do it or you might not. But if you're committed to do it, you'll do it. And I think the things to think about is, what's stopping you from being great? Where are the gaps in skills, resources, engagement, networking, influence, and knowledge? But honestly, I would advocate anyone doing that over the next couple of weeks before April comes along. It's a great way of keeping momentum up and getting the energy going. And I think you can immerse yourself and the officers if you've got an exciting, clear action plan. Don't leave anything out because you think it's too hard. And ask yourself, why do you want 2024 to be a great year? Get emotionally attached to it and make sure your staff love it. Quick question. I think we spoke about this earlier in terms of recruitment. What are you looking for when you're recruiting great staff? What kinds of things?
Can you hit targets?
Can you hit targets? That's a great one.
Communication skills.
Yeah. Seeing a lot of officers that don't like even talking to people, which I find it's weird. You get some officers that don't like being measured on targets, and you think, well, you signed yourself up to this, And then you get some officers that don't even like picking up the phone, don't even like people. Yeah. Anything else in terms of transferable skills? Yeah.
I think myself was, a bit of a prime example. When I first started with Rotherham, zero housing experience whatsoever, and then kind of got the chance. From background that I'd got before that, and then came.
What was your background? What did you do?
Just call centre for a few years.
Yeah.
Just call centre for a few years, and then came into housing. Never had any housing experience whatsoever. But seeing that I could actually hold a conversation with people, now I see that as a better thing rather than somebody that's got a little bit of housing experience, like some people internal that might have a bit of housing experience, but are scared to speak to somebody face to face or hold a conversation with someone on the phone.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
I used to ask some of my old team in the early days if they were collecting money using the mines, because I never saw them on the phone and I never saw them doing any visits. So it's like, how are you collecting any money?
How about anyone else? What do you look for when you're recruiting good people?
I think staff who are likely to go beyond just churning out rent sense numbers. So almost like, acting above your grade and just looking wider at service improvements. So it's not just about one thing, one activity.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, energy, enthusiasm.
I always like it when somebody asks a question on what are steps for progression as well within your organisation.
Yeah.
That shows such a keen interest to want to actually be involved in something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Progression's not for everyone, but it's great that people are thinking about their next career opportunity.
Care about the customers as well, because if we get 1,500 rent sense recommendations, that's 1,500 conversations with customers that we're having. So we have a big impact on the reputation of the organisation.
Yeah, I think income teams can really drive long-term satisfaction because you're probably speaking to more people, bar probably the call centre, than anyone else. You get very few complaints as well in income collection, don't you? But actually, you're making thousands and thousands of calls. So a great way to make a difference. Anything from anyone else?
I think sometimes you're looking for the right fit, aren't you?
Yeah, into the team dynamics. Yeah, I've been there before where I've been recruiting and you just think, I don't think that person is going to fit the dynamics of the team. They might be half decent, but they might rub up 2 or 3 people the wrong way.
Is that right or wrong though? Because sometimes that's the safe bet, isn't it? So they'll give you the answers that you've got on this list of questions, and you go, yeah, they'll be a good fit.
Yeah.
Whereas you're saying if you take that chance on someone who might not necessarily meet certain criteria, but could be brilliant. Yeah. You don't know, do you? Yeah. You're going to go with.
Does it depend when you choose as well?
Yeah. But if you recruit people and they don't fit the dynamics of the team, trying to get rid of someone is hard, isn't it? One or 2 bad apples, it just infects everyone else. It only takes 1 or 2 people.
Losing the good people as well, because it's not just is it not right for them. They start disrupting other people. You end up kind of losing your good staff.
Yeah. I think dogged and determined is a big one. I think, was it last week that someone said, what is dogged? I think people know what dogged is.
Yeah, dogged is like you have to be a dog with a bone. Because like with income management, you're going to get some really hardened tenants who are brilliant at avoiding you, brilliant at not paying. And you as an income officer, you've got to just be down for that. And you've got to be on it. You've got to be knocking at that door 7:30 in the morning, 6:30 at night, whatever it is. You've got to just be like relentless when it comes to making contact and getting the money. The best income officers are the ones. We're not going to say they take it personal, but let's just say they don't let anything slide. And that's what dogged is.
I think the other one that isn't on here is being organised. I think it's a role that can really overwhelm people these days. And if you're not organised, it can very, very quickly overwhelm you. People have got 1,001 things to do every single week.
Can I just go back to your dogged question? We've got officers who are, but I'll normally get a complaint from that, which is good. Yeah. But that officer, the customer will always ask to change income officer.
Yeah.
And I've had a few of them. Not so much as a complaint, but I've had the call passed through. I don't want to speak to such and such anymore, but he phoned me.
Yeah.
In a way, though, I'd be flipping that, and I'd say, at least you've got an officer that cares. You've got an officer that's trying to help you resolve the situation, that's going out of the way for you. I think in a way you should feel blessed that you've got someone that's so passionate about. No, you don't get another officer.
But it's common.
Yeah. Is there you got an answer to that?
On very, very rare occasions, we've switched some around patches, but generally speaking, and our calls are recorded by you guys. If they've not said anything out of turn or against policy or rude, then that's your officer and they're telling you right.
That's something that I'm fighting for at the moment. Our calls are not recorded.
Yeah.
And I'm saying we needed to actually look at the quality.
It's really helpful.
And I don't know how long so I've been saying really
What's your can you measure how many calls people are making and taking?
Very difficult. We used Microsoft Teams.
And it's just not the way. It's just yesterday we've been asking for that, and the information we got yesterday, we've only just looked at it, to be honest.
Yeah.
But there's too many assumptions you have to build in because it's coming through Teams. So then I'm going to go back and say,
it's not a telephone system,
Yeah.
so it won't even give you the information in regards to that call was answered.
no.
Yeah. I think having a strong telephony system is massive in income collection. Contact centre. Yeah. I had that for years. So our income team were in the same building as the contact centre, and I didn't want the income team being the contact centre, but I took the best bits from a contact centre and put it into an income environment. But we were able to measure the number of calls people were taking, the average call length for inbounds and outbounds. So very, very quickly, we're able to see those officers that were spending far too much time on the phone, which was preventing them from getting through the work. But on the flip side, there were officers that were spending not much time. 60-second calls, so the quality wasn't there. We could look at wrap-up times, so the amount of time it was taking to do the notes before moving on to the next one. And then the big one was the amount of time someone was spending on the phone as a collective in the week. So guess what the average percentage was of the average income officer being on the phone, inbound and outbound, as a percentage? 20%? 60%? 25%. So I actually thought I had a half decent team that were okay, pretty good. But when we ran that, what got me thinking was, what are they doing for the other 75% of the time?
That's why we want that.
Yeah. Honestly, you'll be shocked about how few times.
With the recording as well, obviously, especially for us now when we're getting manager escalations or complaints, it's protecting the staff member and it's protecting the customer back to the conversation that you have.
Because there was one conversation and we happened to be in the office and we could hear the way the officer dealt with it, and it was really, it was okay.
Yeah.
We got a complaint in, so we do need it.
Unless it's recorded, you kind of know where to go. It's their word against the officer.
And that's
I found it dead helpful, like, one, to back up your staff member, but also if it's not been brilliant,
you
can play it
it's a way of
back.
we've listened to it together.
It's to look at that quality. You know, you were talking about getting through the numbers, but it's the quality behind getting through the numbers, and that's an element of thing.
Because we do it as part of our performance meetings, now we do call audit and we can play the calls back to them. What do you think about this?
We faced a lot of backlash from officers, didn't we? Because officers were thinking that they're going to have to change their styles and approaches on calls because they feel like maybe they couldn't be as harsh, let's say, or a bit towards tenants that are obviously not paying and things like that. But realistically, that's nobody's changed really how they speak to anybody on phone just because it's recorded or not. And I think that was the first initial hurdle, really, weren't it? Getting officers to buy into the fact that nothing's going to change here. If anything, it's going to help you.
Yeah, they got used to it very quickly. Yeah. Cut out all malicious complaints. Really.
That's why. Well, that's one of the things we want to put the other things as well. And also, how much time are they actually on the phone? That's the other thing I want.
Well, I had some officers lowest percentage was probably about 12. They were the ones that I knew were a problem, that weren't making enough calls, getting through the work. But so that those stats and facts just verified that. And then the people that were strong performers were the ones at like 35, 36%. But even then, at 36%, you're still thinking, what are you doing for the other 60%? Are you spending time on too much paperwork, too much bureaucracy? You know, what's preventing you from being on the phone 70% of the time? Were you going to say something? No, sorry. I think you were saying income and lettings together now. Yeah? Is that working? Working well? Yeah. At the last organisation that I worked at, I oversaw income and lettings and service charges. Hated service charges. Absolutely one of the reasons I left the role was because of service charges. Absolutely hated it. But I loved doing lettings and income. But one of the big things that we did to improve the process for looking after new tenants, because I'm super passionate about getting new tenants off to the best possible start, is that we contacted 100 tenants that had gone through the sign-up process over the previous 18 months, 2 years. And we did loads of feedback sessions with those tenants to ask them, how did it feel to be signed up? So we tried to look at it from the tenant's perspective. And we totally transformed our approach to looking after new tenants. And I think we went from scoring ourselves probably 5 out of 10 to about 8 or 9 out of 10. But what the best outcome was on that is we surveyed every tenant that went through the new tenancy process. And I think when I joined, the average score per tenant was something like 6.5 out of 10. Wasn't great. But 18 months later, it was about 9 out of 10. So I'd always look at it from the tenant's perspective when you're designing solutions.
I think just on that point as well, probably 2 points. Firstly, customer ratings, we all know how important they're going to be under the TSM measures. But also what a lot of organisations do is have massive pushes on things like, what's the review website now? Anyway, external facing reviews becoming more and more important to execs because they really want a public image around how good it is to be part of this organisation as a member of staff or as a member of tenant, as a tenant, sorry. So it's going to be super important that that's measured and utilised. But I see people using this process as well for the universal credit migration. So a customer in Wales recently, I saw them online doing sessions with their tenants and building out what a good process looks like from their perspective, that tenant lens, rather than us in the sector deciding this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Ultimately, it's the tenants that are at the end of it. So how do you include them in the process and include their views?
Yeah, this is a big one as well. Looking back on how much time is being wasted on filling in forms or doing admin or chasing other teams. Is there any income teams here that have to chase their housing management colleagues? Elaine's just taken her glasses off. When I used to meet our housing management team once a month to go through all the tricky cases, sublets, deaths, abandonments. I was a polite pest, so I asked nicely what was going on about stuff, but I reckon, I reckon for ourselves and yourself, because how many homes have you got? Yeah, so similar size organisation. I reckon there's probably about £1 million worth of arrears on those cases that you're having to chase through.
Yeah, we started
Started measuring it, yeah.
We do that with our meetings now. What you mentioned at the last meeting that we came to around when you go to the meetings, taking the feel with you. So myself and Mary meet monthly with our team leaders in neighbourhoods, and when we're talking about cases, we put the figure on of what that rent is. So that succession that you're holding on to, or
that LIP that's the debt that's there with them.
Yeah.
I think that's really good. I like that. If it's not something that you do as an organisation, it's really powerful, isn't it, when you present the amount of money that's being lost due to poor admin or due to people in the process letting you down. And execs are very interested when they see there's £1 million worth of debt there unnecessarily, as well as costing you. Obviously, people on the waiting list could be in them homes and they could be paying rent, and you could be taking people out of temp accommodation. And instead, within the system, you've got people that are inhibiting all that. So it's super important to get that exec lens.
I always remember when I left that organisation, in my leaving card, some of the housing managers said, "Mark, I'm really sorry to see you go, but I'm not going to miss you chasing me or hassling me to terminate a tenancy on a death or an abandonment." You'll have to help me out on this slide, Nick. What does it even mean? Such a Nick slide, isn't it?
So this is interesting. It's all about learning from failure. And I'll just start with a little story from World War I. I remember it well. What you've got in the top right is basically 2 aeroplanes. The first one on the left, bullet-free. The one on the right, covered in bullets. So what people were doing is to try and make aeroplanes more useful in combat, is they were trying to learn what was working and not working from an armour perspective. But the only things that they could learn from were the planes that were coming back, the ones that actually worked. So they weren't actually learning from where they needed to learn, because all the ones that have been damaged, that's where all the useful information was. So what we often do as teams or as organisations, we have a tendency when we're looking at things not to look at the full picture when we're trying to put solutions in place. So if you're an organisation that's not taking a holistic view of problems and you're only looking at part of a problem, ultimately it just inhibits the amount of solutions that you can facilitate. But if anybody's not read the book, it's called Black Box Thinking, and it's a fantastic book, and it's all about using failure to deliver solutions, and that being the best teacher that you can possibly have. Not what's gone right, but what's gone wrong, how do we learn from it? It's really impressive.
Did you ask your girlfriend to write that one down?
I got her to read it to me. Bedtime story.
We've spoken a lot today about kind of teamwork and team building, but does anyone do like team building away days or team building afternoons? Yeah, talk me through what that looks like. Does it end with a pub crawl?
Not quite, not for these ones, no. They're trying to do them quarterly, aren't they now? I think while this team was smaller, we were able to get away with sort of full days out, team building exercises, things like that, but now it's got a lot less frequent just because this team's grown massively. So generally, how many is it? 80, 83 across our wider team, so everybody get together. Last one we had an interchanging team, so you weren't sat with your same faces that you are, which is great, because ultimately there's people come into office which I've not even met yet myself. I've seen these 83 people, so it's nice to obviously see every team, obviously what they're about, where obviously they come from and things like that, get to know them. Bit of team building, bit of focus on performance, see what we're looking to scope out obviously in the year ahead and things like that. Just stuff of that nature.
I love that. Who's driving that?
So the head of service really is driving that. But we also have
there's
nights out.
Obviously. I don't want to go out with you too many times.
So you're in charge of the team building committee, are you?
Well, it's just changed now. We've got, because of how wide our team's obviously grown, we've we've got separate social. We remember being on about it, aren't we? We've got separate social secretaries now for a team.
A social secretary. I love that.
We're trying to get the buy-in. Obviously, if we are having any away days or days out, nights out, anything like that, we want the wider team to come, not necessarily like our close teams that work together. We want to see other people from other areas. So the idea now behind that we've got 4 or 5 social sects is you're trying to bring in obviously people that wouldn't normally come, or it's easier for you to spread the message to your team and me to spread it to my team, rather than me emailing somebody that I've never really spoke to in my life.
Yeah. And this is like evenings out, is it?
Yeah,
on a Friday.
Dogs.
Well, it has to be, doesn't it? Because there's no point doing it on a Wednesday and people are half cut. when they come in on a Thursday. But I love the fact that there's different secretaries across different teams.
It's a new thing that's come from our new suggestion box.
Okay. Yeah. And it's one of those you can choose to go, you choose not to go.
Exactly, that's it. You're never going to get the buy-in. Like you made a comment earlier about obviously focus on the 80% of your team, because at the end of the day, you can't let the 10, 20% that aren't going to come ultimately bring you down.
Yeah, I love that. I think the best teams that I've worked at in the past have done those kinds of things. Team building, nights out, created a spirit between us. We've worked really hard, but we've had a bit of fun as well. What are people's thoughts on patch reviews? Do you change patches often? No. Sometimes can go down like a lead balloon, can't it? When you're offering up to change a patch.
Yeah. In February, I get loads of emails. Don't put me on this patch. I don't want district heating.
I know, like you're having it now.
Don't want to block the flats.
Yeah.
So you change it every year? Okay.
Wow. It's difficult, that one though, because rent sense, you're looking at people who reduce on their patch.
Yeah.
So they might swap them with someone whose patch is higher.
Yeah.
It looks like you're putting them onto a patch to improve it.
Yeah.
And that might not necessarily be the idea, so it creates a little bit of tension.
I'd be interested as well, just on patch reviews. Does anybody have patch level sessions? So as an income officer, do they have a fortnightly meeting with the respective lettings officer, housing officer, financial inclusion officer, etc.?
No.
So
we've started bringing in sort of teams catch-ups every fortnight and trying to get one in person per month with the income officer and the housing officer. And we've combined our team meetings as well, so we've got income, housing, tenancy sustainment, every month, once a month that, and we go through any cases on either side, just to encourage everybody to be talking to each other a bit more and working together.
Yeah, I really like it. I think it was yourself that told me working with a client. They call them left-hand, right-hand meetings, and it's so that the left hand knows what the right hand's doing. Because it's like we said earlier, there'll be lots of knowledge across the people doing the job, but unless it's shared, it's not as impactful. So as an income officer, getting to meet the voids person or the lettings or the financial inclusion or the housing officer just once a week, where the people responsible for that patch of properties, it provides a much better service to the tenants if there's more joined up working amongst the people that are actually responsible for the different parts of that patch.